Have you been trying to make pretzels or wanted to make pretzels at your house, but have wondered about using lye or using baking soda or which one is better? This video might be the one for you. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is make our dough. And so our ingredients are going to be 4.5 cups of flour, 1.5 cups of water between 110 and 120 degrees, a tablespoon of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, a tablespoon of instant yeast, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and then later on we're going to need 2/3 of a cup of baking soda or 2 tablespoons of food grade lye, and then some pretzel salt or coarse salt. I just used coarse salt for this video because I didn't want to buy pretzel salt, and that's completely up to you. So in this video, we're going to be contrasting doing a lye dip or a boiling baking soda water dip, just so you can see what the difference in those two is, so that you can make that decision for yourself. And so we're going to make the dough and then do 4 pretzels with one and 4 pretzels with the other. So we're going to add your water, your yeast, and your sugar to the bowl of your stand mixer. And the water should be 110 to 120 degrees because if it's cooler, that yeast isn't going to activate. And if it's hotter, it's going to kill your yeast. And then you're just going to give that a quick mix to get that yeast dissolved and to get that sugar dissolved a little bit so that we can wake that yeast up a little bit. You can also whisk this up rather than using the dough hook, but the dough hook will work just fine. Then we are going to add your flour in and get this mixing up a bit. And notice we have not added our salt and our butter yet, but we're just going to get it started mixing. And then we are going to add the salt and butter on top of the flour. And this is so that the salt doesn't come in direct contact with the yeast. Salt, when it comes in direct contact with the yeast, will kill it. So we are giving this a little bit of an insurance policy so that does not happen. But you do have to have the salt because it's going to keep the yeast from growing too much. And if you don't have it, that dough is going to taste super flat. So add that salt and butter, and then we are just going to mix that until the dough comes together. And you're going to mix it until the dough cleans the side of the bowl. And you might need to adjust this a little bit because you do want this dough to be the right consistency. So you are going to be keeping an eye on this. You want it to clean the side of the bowl and look like this. If it is sticky and clinging to the bottom of the bowl and having like a little goo on the bottom, then you might need to add a little bit of flour. If it's looking too powdery, you're going to add water a teaspoon to a tablespoon at a time until your bowl looks like this. Once it has cleaned your bowl, you're going to turn your mixer to a medium speed and let it knead for 5 minutes. You might have to pull it off the hook every once in a while just because it likes to climb up there a little bit. But this is just so you don't have to knead with your hands because that can get a little bit tough over time. And this is also really good if you have mobility issues and stuff. The mixer will do all that work for you. Then you're going to pull it off that hook and form it into an even ball and put it in the bowl. Cover your bowl with a towel and just let it sit until it's doubled. This is going to take about an hour at normal room temperature, but you are going to be doing this simply by looking at it to see if it's doubled in size. So now we are going to be forming our pretzels. So you're going to oil 2 sheet pans covered with either parchment paper or silicone mats. I'm using the silicone mats just because they're reusable. And you just want to brush them with like canola oil or vegetable oil. You want it to be a neutral flavored oil and not olive oil because olive oil does burn really easily. Then you're going to use your dough knife and cut that dough into 8 evenly sized pieces because this recipe makes 8 pretzels. And then you're going to roll that into a 1/2 or 3 to 3/4 inch log. And if you'll notice, I am not putting flour down on the surface. The flour is actually going to make this process harder. So, and if it is not really wanting to roll too much, you can put a little oil on your surface and that'll help it roll a little bit easier. So then you're going to curve it in half and then crisscross those ends over and then pinch them on the opposite side. And then sometimes I'll stick my fingers into those little holes and stretch it out a little bit. But you are going to put 4 pretzels on each of those pans. And these actually are not going to have a second rise like you normally have. And now a quick word from our sponsors. Okay guys, I keep on telling you this. We don't have any sponsors. So the only thing you can do to help this channel is subscribe. Hit that button, please. I don't know why you haven't done this yet. Thank you. So now we are going to get ready for our 2 different baths. So the first one we're going to do is a lye bath, and this is what the final product of the lye pretzel looked like. It is important that you wear gloves this entire process. So if you are a little bit anxious about this process, the baking soda process might be the one for you. You are immediately going to place all used items in the dishwasher or wash them separately from everything else and run a lot of water behind it. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of food grade lye into a plastic bowl. You are not going to use glass. You are not going to use metal because lye is a very caustic chemical, and so you want it to be a plastic bowl. It needs to have the number 2 or number 5 recycling code on it because it can break down other types of plastic. So you don't want to just use any plastic. It needs to be a very specific type of plastic. So now I am taking that to the dishwasher. And then we are going to stir in a quart of ice water. And the reason you want ice water is this is going to create heat because of the sodium. And so you want to have ice water so that it doesn't create too much heat in this process. You're just going to stir that until it's dissolved. And then once that lye is dissolved, we are ready to go. So you're going to use a stainless steel spider and not plastic utensils for this, and dip each of the pretzels into the lye water and then place them onto your pan that has been brushed with oil. Then sprinkle with salt, cinnamon sugar, Parmesan, whatever. And then these are just going to get baked off. Once you are done with the water, you are going to pour that down the sink and run lots and lots of water behind it. So then we are going to do a baking soda bath. And this is the one to use if you are a little bit anxious about using lye or you just don't want to purchase a specialized product. So you're going to bring 10 cups of water to a boil and add 2/3 of a cup of baking soda to that water. And it is going to foam up a good bit when you add that in. So keep an eye out for that, and then just stir that up until it's dissolved. And then we are going to take each of those pretzels on your little spoon, and 1 to 2 pretzels at a time, you're going to drop them in the boiling soda water for 30 seconds. You don't want to do more than a couple at a time because of the heat, but you're going to leave them for 30 seconds and place them back on the sheet pan. And I'm kind of using the spoon to press them down a little bit just to make sure they get completely submerged. And then pull those out. You do not want to leave them longer than 30 seconds or they're going to taste a little off. They're going to end up tasting metallic-y or like baking soda if you've ever had the pleasure of tasting that. Then you're going to bake both of these either way that you do it at 425 or 375 convection for about 10 to 14 minutes depending on the way that your oven bakes until they are golden brown. And this is what your final product looks like. My preference was the lye version. It tasted a whole lot better. It tasted a lot more natural. The baking soda version always ends up tasting a little bit off to me. The final product for both of them is really, really pretty, but it's completely up to you. And a lot of times this has to do with what your particular preference is in terms of whether or not you want to buy a specialized product or not. Lye is available pretty easily online. Just make sure that you are getting the food grade version and not just any random version. Thank you so much for joining us this time. If you are interested, we would love to have you as a member. We have 2 different levels available. If you are not interested in joining as a member, we would love to have you as a subscriber. Subscribing is absolutely free, and we will see you next week.